Hi everyone, it's Michelle from Scrap Secrets and welcome to another card making video. So for this video, we're going to discuss how I created this card with multiple stamps from multiple companies and created a cohesive design for a one-year-old's birthday. So this is for my goddaughter, Mila. I'm going to show you the envelope that I decorated as well. So here's the front of the card, and then here is the inside piece. I've already written my sentiment on the inside, so I don't want to show that to you guys. But I will show you how I did, or I will talk about how I did this card. So the first stamp company that we're going to talk about is Mama Elephant. So I used their donut treats, and this is what it looks like. So you can see I used this stamp down here. I used this one with the little mouse in it. I used the stack of donuts, and then I used up here the birthday cake with the mouse, or the birthday donuts with the mouse hanging out of it. So on the card, here's the stack of donuts. Here's the two donuts. There's the mouse with the donut in it. And then on the inside, here is the mouse with the birthday candles and the two donuts. And then this is actually a combination of two of the stamps. So that's my first tip. When you are doing images, you can stamp them out several times and then put them together. There are different ways to, edit your stamps. So for example, if you needed a stack that was higher than this, because I used my brother's Scan and Cut to cut this out, and we'll talk about that in a minute, and the side didn't cut out perfectly, so I wanted to mask that. So if I needed it to go a little bit higher, I could have stamped another row of donuts and then just cut them out and then just kept the pattern going. So either putting this donut on, cutting out the first two donuts and then just putting them on top of it, or cutting out some of the bottom donuts and just sticking them down at the bottom and just moving this up to the top. So that's one of the ways that you can use your stamps differently to create different looks. So these two images are basically put together for this one here. And like I said, I used my brother's Scan and Cut to cut all of these out because when we talk about this, I didn't buy the dies that were associated with it. So, and I don't know if each piece in the die set cuts out separately and then you'll have that white border around it. I just used my brother's Scan and Cut. So we'll talk about that in a second because those are the next stamp sets that we're going to talk about. The next company that I used are Hero Arts, and this one is called Decorate a Cake. So I used this whole cake piece and then I turned it into a unicorn. So I used the eyes, the ears, which I think, did I mask them off? I might have actually, they're in here somewhere. Oh wait, there's the ear. I used this ribbon down here and I made a mistake, so I'll show you that in a minute. The unicorn horn, I used the flowers, and then I used this piece. Oh, these are the two flowers. So I cut out some extra flowers and put them on the cake because I wanted to do some masking. So that, what I could have done if I had known I was going to use my brother's Scan and Cut, because at this point when I started stamping, I didn't think that I was going to use it. I probably could have just stamped these all individually and then had the brother Scan and cut them out. But what I decided to do was do some masking. So I had to mask off where the horn was going to be. I actually stamped the flowers down first because I wanted them in the front, and then masked those off and then stamped the horn, stamped the ears, and I also stamped the flowers down first before I actually stamped the image out. So to do that, I placed this image in my MISTI, and then I placed the flowers where I wanted them to be, closed the MISTI, pulled the cake part of it off, and then just stamped the flowers down. That was the easiest way to do it so you wouldn't get lines going through it, because if you didn't do that, you would have that cake line going through this and that flower there. But also what I needed to do was to stamp out the little icing piece that's on here. And I did that crooked, which is one of the reasons why the donuts are here. The donuts are hiding the side of the cake that didn't have a strong black line, as well as the icing down at the bottom. So when I stamped this icing piece, it was crooked. So I just decided to hide it with some donuts. And now you guys will be some of the only ones that will know that because you've watched the video. To do this card and make it cohesive, I used a lot of the same colors to keep everything tied together. So I didn't want a ton of different colors in here, so I just stuck with pinks and purples. That's what helped it stay together, even though they were from very different stamp companies. So for the box here, I used another Hero Art stamp called Surprise Gift, and I stamped out the lid and the box. These were 2 separate pieces, and I used my brother's Scan and Cut to cut them out. Then the next thing I did was I used this MFT cloud stencil to create the background with Distress Oxide in Worn Lipstick. And I also used the MFT BB Magical Unicorns. I used this unicorn here, and I tilt it so that it looked like the unicorn was jumping out of the box, because I wanted to make it be kind of like a surprise. The unicorn was popping out. I wanted to incorporate the unicorn in there because I incorporated this unicorn cake, and I tried to figure out how this could all go together. So that's keeping the same type of theme going across. So it's kind of sweets and donuts and magical things. And there's a lot of themes in here, but that's how I tied them all together. It was keeping a very similar color scheme going, and then also a similar animal theme. Like I had magical creatures, and even though a mouse isn't really magical, it's something that you shouldn't be seeing coming out of donuts. So that whimsical fairy tale kind of, cartoony drawing. So that's kind of the thing too. They don't have to be from the same company, but as long as you're doing something that's cartoonish altogether. If this was a realistic looking unicorn, it probably wouldn't go with this because this is more whimsical. So that's another way that you can incorporate stamps from different companies. And then the next thing that I did was I used the sentiment, "You're one of a kind," and that was from the MFT Magical, what was that? I'm sorry. It was the MFT Magical Unicorns. And so the sentiment actually says, "You are one of a kind," O-N-E. And then I decided to take the Kindred Stamps Doodlebug Uppercase number 1, and I masked off the O-N-E and then replaced it with that number 1 in there because this is her first birthday. So I made sure that I used the 1 from here. And again, it has a more whimsical, fairy tale-ish kind of theme to the 1, so it went very well with that. Then I used another sentiment from the Mama Elephant stamp set. It says, "You do not even know how excited I am about your birthday." And then this happy birthday is from the Hero Arts stamp set, the first one that I used, and that one was the Decorate a Cake. So you can see that I used 4 different stamp companies, and I think I used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 when I show you the envelope, 6 different stamp sets from 4 different companies. So here is the envelope, and I used the 2 donuts and the mouse with the birthday candles on it, and I just used the same color distress ink that I had used to stamp out the "You Are One of a Kind," and that is the Dusty Concord. It's not exactly, this is more of a like pinkish purple, and this is more of like a bluish purple, but it was the closest color that I had, so I think it looks fine. I don't think that it's too far off where it looks kind of out of place, but I thought it would look really nice on the black cardstock because it's set on a black card base. So that's it. That is the card for her first birthday. It took me a really long time. I actually did all of this stamping and coloring and cutting it out a while ago, and it's been sitting on one of my carts for probably 2 or 3 weeks now, just trying to figure out how I was going to finish this all off. And I have to go over in probably like a little less than an hour, probably about half an hour from now. I have to go over to her birthday party, and I decided over to their house for dinner and cake. And I figured I better get myself moving on putting this together. So it took me a long time to figure out how to incorporate all of this together. So I hope that helps if you guys are trying to figure out how to incorporate different stamp companies together. Those are some of the things you can do. Use the same color scheme throughout the whole entire thing. Find images that are similar. Now, it doesn't have to be unicorn and unicorn, but just make sure that if your one stamp that you really want to use is whimsical, you use another whimsical, because if you use something that's more realistic, it's not going to go together as well as if you use all kinds of whimsical stamp sets. And every company has different ways that they do things. Like I feel like Concord and Ninth, most of the time, those are more realistic when you do things. I find that MFT has a lot more of the cartoony ones, and as well as Kindred Stamps and Mama Elephant and Lawn Fawn. They have a lot of the cutesy, whimsical stamps. So a lot of those companies can go together. And not that Concord and Ninth doesn't have some whimsical things. Honeybee Stamps has a lot of realistic things too, so you can use those kind of things together. Those are just the stamp companies that I happen to have a lot of stuff from, and things that are just sitting on my desk and I was looking around saying, oh, okay, that's a whimsical stamp set. But there are many, many other stamp companies out there that have whimsical and more realistic. So just take a look at what you have in your stash and see what can go together, and you'd be really surprised to see what actually does go together when you start putting things, because I was pulling things from Mila's card and I was like, how am I ever going to make this work? But I think in the end it turned out really well. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you have comments or questions about anything that you saw in this video or anything that you want to see, please feel free to leave them below or message me, and I will see you guys again real soon for another video. Bye!